And let's get going. Welcome to Mindset Coaching and Belief Shifting. I want to start with how stories work. When I do my work, I frame a lot of things are going on in your life in terms of stories. And to give you an idea of how that works, this is a story about what happened with me and my family, which I thought was just fascinating. I used to live in downtown Toronto, and I moved to the town of Aurora, which is north of Toronto. And a while back, there was not much here. But now that at the time I'm living here, there's a lot. It's a suburb, not a rural area. But my family made this joke, oh, you're moving up to live on a farm. And I just go along with it. Yeah, I'm going to live on a farm now because it's Aurora. And every now and then they said, how's life on the farm? I'm like, life on the farm is good. But then one time I was get together with my brother and my cousins, and we're chatting away. And they said, what kind of animals do you have on the farm? And I'm like, what? And they said, well, we're just wondering what kind of animals. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Do you think it's a real farm? And they go, yeah, you live on a farm, don't you? And I said, no, I don't live on a farm. And then they argued, yes, you do, with the dark wood on the barn. And I'm like, what? They said, yeah, the dark wood on the barn, and there's the ravine out the back. It's, yeah, the ravine out back to the left. And I'm like, what? And I said, I've never given you this description, number one, because I don't live on a farm. And they said, but no, that's where you live. And I'm asking them, do you guys all have the same picture of where I live? And they said, yeah. I said, have you discussed it previously? And they said, no. I said, how do you have the exact same picture in all of your heads of where I live? And they said, we don't, that's just where we thought you lived. So somehow my family, without any communication between themselves, other than the fact that I lived on a farm, had the same image of the color of the barn, that there was a ravine with a river, which side of the farmhouse that ravine was located on. The only thing they didn't know was whether I had animals. And I was just like, where is this coming from? But it's amazing how we can transmit stories from person to person without any verbal contact. It was just this image that permeated my family about where I lived. And it was kind of freaky, but it was also kind of neat at the same time, because the details that they started telling me were just all in sync. So that's one thing to think about. The other thing to think about is how stories can be transmitted based on the power of the story. So I was at a workshop, a weekend workshop, and there was this guy there we'll call Luke. And he arrived at the workshop, and I immediately recognized him as the awkward outsider, because growing up, I was the awkward outsider. So I am skillful at spotting these people now. And usually when I see an awkward outsider, because of what I've been through, I say, hey, you know what, come on over, have a chat. And I welcome into the group. I get them into conversations. I make them feel comfortable. But with Luke, I didn't do that. I just watched him being the awkward outsider for the weekend. And I'd see him, when there's a group of people talking, then there's the person that stands just near the group, just trying to figure out how to slide into the group and become part of the conversation, but not make it look awkward, and doesn't want to feel like they're intruding. But it's just like, and I watched him do these maneuvers on the weekend. And even one time when a bunch of us were out to lunch and sharing stories, he started talking about something and he got everyone's attention, and I could see him light up, and he's like, people are listening to me, I'm being seen, and he's telling the story. And then what he said triggered some other girl to go, oh, that reminds me. And she started talking and just pulled all the attention away from him onto her story. And I could see him just dejected. And he's like, I had them, I lost them. And still, I didn't say anything like, hey, Luke was talking. Let's hear the end of Luke's story. We're going to miss the end of Luke's story. I just sort of watched all this happen. And it wasn't until the end of the weekend, when we were all packing up to go home, that I ended up right next to Luke at our cars, putting things in our cars. And he goes, I hope they do this again next year, because now that I've been here and people know me, next year I won't be the awkward outsider, and I'll be like part of the in crowd and know everyone just like you knew everyone. And I looked at him and I said, what are you talking about that I knew everyone? He goes, well, obviously you knew a whole bunch of people before you got here this weekend. And I said, no, I didn't know anyone here before this weekend. And then it hit me. It goes, oh my God, you had your awkward outsider story, and you were so powerful in that story that you kept me from helping you because that would have broken the story. And this is the thing I found: whoever's story is strongest wins. I've been doing mindset work, energy work for years. And this guy was so powerfully in his story that I'm going to be the awkward outsider that he overrode everyone at that event, because I know a bunch of those people at the event now, and they're wonderful, caring, welcoming people. But they weren't like that with him. They were just not dismissive, but just like, he's trying to get in. We just won't really pay that much attention. And that's not normally how they behave. They behaved according to his story. And you do this with people. If your story is strong enough, everyone else buys your story. Not only that, but you can have reality buy your story. And what I mean by that is, there was one event that one of my old coaches was running. And during the event, he does this exercise where he pulls out this $100 bill. And over the course of the event he does, which is 3 days, people earn tickets by arriving to class on time and doing different participation actions. And all these tickets go into a big thing for a draw. And so when the draw came up and he said, well, the first thing we're going to draw is who's going to win a $100 bill. He went to get the $100 bill, but he had forgotten to get the $100 bill. And he had 250s. And so he's like, okay, I forgot the $100 bill, so I got 250. So we can do a draw for $100, or we can do two draws, and we can do $50 each draw. And he said, what do you guys think? And most of the people there, and there were like a couple hundred people there, they said, two draws, $50, more people could win. It's better. But there was one lady near the front that just goes, one draw, I win. And the whole room went silent after she said that. It's like, what? And he looked at her, he said, listen, okay, we sort of put it to a vote. It seems like two draws, it's what we're going to do. So we're just going to go along with that. And so then he goes into the ticket jar, and he pulls out a ticket. He calls out the number, and it belonged to that lady. She's like, that's mine. And everyone was like, whoa, because she just won. And she said, one draw, I win. But I mean, okay, she got halfway there. And he goes in, he mixes it up, pulls out the next ticket, and it was hers as well. So she got the full 100 because her story was strongest. She overrode everyone else in that room. And that's how stories work. Stories are contagious. And you buy stories from other people. They buy stories from you. Shh, sorry. Dog is barking. Okay. They buy stories from you, and you can hold on to a story for a few seconds or a few hours, or you can hold on to them for the rest of your life. Now, there's stories that you're running right now that you got from childhood that are still running your life now. Things your parents used to say all the time, the habits your parents used to have, things that you learned in school from your teachers. You're running their stories and defining your world from their stories. And the problem with this is, while some are useful, there's a lot of them that are limiting, because most people grow up in a limiting mindset. So when you realize that and figure out that you can start stepping out of these stories just by making a conscious effort to do so, you can start changing the very reality of your life. And it all comes from just that intention that I don't like the story. I'm done with it. I'm stepping out of the story. So stories affect you in three ways. There's their stories about you. So who they think you are, what they think you're capable of, and the you they're comfortable with. And when you're growing up, if your parents are telling you, you're going to do wonderful things, you're going to go conquer the world, you have so much potential, we have a lot of faith in you, you can buy their stories about you and go out and do wonderful things in the world. But if your parents are teaching you, oh, you're good for nothing, children should be seen and not heard, right? And you'll never amount to anything, you can buy those stories and go out into the world. But here's the crazy thing is, you get bombarded with those stories so often, they become comfortable for you. So your parents could tell you you're good for nothing, you'll never amount to anything. And you could consciously say, you know what, screw it. I'm not listening to them. I'm going to go out and I'm going to conquer the world. I'm going to create a company. I'm going to do some amazing things. And you go out and you're trying your hardest and it's not working. And the reason is, while consciously you're trying to create an amazing life, unconsciously, those stories are still running beneath the surface, controlling what you're doing and controlling the results you get. And unless you learn that they're there and acknowledge that they're and step out of them, you're always going to get the same results. And the thing is, when you do start to change, when you start to change your stories and change who you are, then there's the you they're comfortable with, and not just your parents, your friends, and people around you. They'll get uncomfortable with the new you, even if they support it. They're not used to it, and they'll get uncomfortable with it. And what I've found is what most people do is when the people around them are uncomfortable because of the change they're making, they undo the change so that everyone's comfortable again. People may not be happy, people may not be successful, but they're comfortable. So when you start to make changes in your life, you have to allow everyone to get uncomfortable with who you're becoming, including you, because you're not going to be used to it. You're going to get uncomfortable with who you're becoming. And you have to let everyone sit in that discomfort until they get used to it. And they go, okay, this is who you are. And then now that becomes the new comfort zone for you and everyone else. And then you want to improve your life again. So now everyone's going to get uncomfortable again. And you're going to go through the process. And I did this with my family in that when I was in college, I wanted to go to Germany. And I was in a co-op program, and they said, you can go to Germany, but you won't earn money in Germany because the co-op program is going to fund your trip and stuff. So there's just going to be no money there, but you get to go for free. And I said, I want to go to Germany. I want to learn that. So everyone in my class says, what are you doing? You're not going to be making money. This is co-op. We're in co-op so we can pay off our tuition as we go. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to go to Germany. I think it's going to be great. And so, and my family is like, same thing. You know, why are you going? You stay here and earn money. I'm like, no, I want to go to Germany. So I went off to Germany. And then I got back and I had an amazing time. And then when I got into the workforce, I found out that there was a trip available to Japan through my college. Even though I graduated, I managed to convince them to let me go to Japan. And then, of course, everyone's saying the same thing. What? You've already got a full-time job. You've got a good, well-paying job, and you want to go to Japan? And are they going to pay you? I said, it's an internship. I'll earn $1,000 a month. And they're like, but you're making big money now that you graduated. Because I was in computers and everything was thriving at the time. And it's just like, and everyone's like, no, don't do it. Stay in your job. Stay where it's safe. And I went off to Japan. And I came back and I had an amazing time. And then my career got even better after that. And then I had an opportunity to go to Australia. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to Australia. But by this point, because I'd done Germany and because I'd done Japan, they're just like, oh, whatever. He's just going to do his thing. And so that became the norm for me, is that Shiraz is just going to do his thing. And it always seems to work for him. So we'll just let him do his thing. But they pushed back and they pushed back up until that point. And now it's just like, if I say I'm going to do something crazy, they just go along with it. Right. So they had to be educated. They had to be comfortable with me being the crazy one, the one that's always out there trying new things and going off on adventures. And that's just who they are, where we are now. So now then there's their stories about them, their hopes, their fears, and their habits. So in this case, your parents could be saying, okay, go out, conquer the world. We have great faith in it. You have so much potential. And that's the story they're telling you. But imagine that your father's telling you this, but his thought about him is, I hope that my child does well because I wasted my potential. I haven't done enough in this world, and it's too late for me, and I'm not going to amount to what I wanted to amount to. You can actually pick up on that story of him about him and buy it for you about you. So even though he's telling you one thing, the energy of who he is can permeate you because you're in him, all in that space all the time. And now you're acting out your father's stories rather than your stories, even though he doesn't want you to act out his stories. Or your mom, or the person you're closest to. Could be a sibling, could be a teacher that you can buy their stories about them. And now you're living in stories that aren't yours. And if they're limiting stories, that's not going to work well for you. And finally, there's their stories about the world. Things like, you can't succeed in this economy. You need to not have a 9-to-5 job to be secure. The world isn't safe. That's a big one right now. And again, people have these stories, and so many people have these stories. It looks like that's just the way life is. That's just the way reality is. But you can exist outside those stories. When COVID first hit, I had one client her business started to tank. And I said, what's going on? She goes, well, it's COVID. Everyone's businesses are suffering because of COVID. And I said, but your business doesn't relate to what's going on in the world because of COVID. The restrictions don't apply to you. But she had bought the story that because of COVID, businesses should tank. And when we shifted her out of that mindset and said, okay, you don't have to be in the same story as everyone else, her business just bounced back almost immediately. Right. And this is what happens. You can just buy these things. I did the same thing at work once. I was making 25% raises at work every year. And then they told me, no, the industry standard is 4. Everyone else is making 4. So the next year I got a 4% raise. Even though what was working for me was great. I was just like, oh, well, if that's the story that everyone's in, I think I'll just jump in that story. It wasn't me thinking that consciously. But when that 4% raise came in next year, I was just like, what the hell just happened? I was doing so well. But that desire to fit in, to be accepted, caused me to change my story. So you can decide, do you want to be accepted and normal and conform to everything that everyone decides is normal? Or do you want to be one of the crazy ones? Do you want to be the ones that are making everyone go, how the hell is he or she doing that? How are they pulling this off? Because that's amazing. And you know these people, you usually admire a bunch of these people because they're out there changing the world, making an impact, and doing things that everyone else is like, there's no way I could do that. They're in a different story. So don't let someone else sell their shitty story of how life works to you. When you're trying to create your life and you're looking for stories to pattern off, if that's what you want to do, then talk to the people that are successful. Talk to the people that are creating happiness. Talk to the people that are creating wonderful relationships and ask them about their stories. Get into the energy of those stories. But what we tend to do is we talk to people that are at the same level as us, try to get advice from them, and that's only going to result in that same level of success or happiness or whatever it is. Right now, I'm in my life, when I'm looking for advice, I go to really successful coaches and figure out what I need to do. Right? I'm not going to go to my friend Fred, who's got a full-time job and makes $40,000 a year. And I'm like, well, if I want to make 7 figures, I'm not going to get advice from someone that's making $40,000. What advice could he possibly give me? But I watch people do these interactions all the time. You know, people that are in bad relationships, giving advice to people that aren't in relationships on how to get get into a relationship. I'm like, why should they listen to you? Look what the relationship you're in. And yet the stories get passed around. So my question is, what stories are you running? So here's a bunch of stories that are common out there. And I just want you to throw a yes in the chat if this is a story you've ever said or a story you've related to. And let's just see where people are. And be honest. Nope, no one's related to any of these stories. Wow, I'm amazed. Okay. All right. The first one is one that seems like it's true, but it's actually a bit of a trap. You have to work hard to succeed. It seems logical. If you're not working hard, why would you have success? Right? If you're sitting on your ass all day, how do you expect to create any kind of success, build a business, or do whatever? And the problem with that is there's an always that's understood in there that your subconscious reads, but your conscious mind doesn't. So you always have to work hard to succeed. So you can't take vacation because then you're not working hard. You can't get sick because then you're not working hard. Whenever you're not working hard, your success will get affected by it. You will succeed less. If you look at it as, I'm willing to work hard to succeed, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, that's a different energy, right? I'm willing to work hard. I'm so willing to work hard. I did an incredibly intense 3-day workshop this weekend, and now I'm doing a 14-hour day today. So, people can't say, no, you're not willing to work hard, because like after this, I'm just going to drop. This is the last one after 14 hours. But I'm also willing to sit on my ass and have money show up in my bank account, which is what I'll be doing next weekend, right? And I'm willing for everything in between as well, right? So when it calls for it, I will work my ass off. But I've actually structured my business so I only have 6 mandatory working days a month. I typically work a lot more days than that because I love what I do and I'm always looking for new opportunities and creating new things. But it's nice to know that if I didn't want to work all month, I could just have those 6 days and pay my bills, right? So watch how these things affect you. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. I hear 2 steps forward, 1 step back. However many steps back you're taking, you tend to create those steps back, even if they're not necessary, because you align to whatever cliche you use. Life is a struggle is a cliche I've heard a lot of people use. If you believe life is a struggle, you will create struggle, even if struggle doesn't exist. And I've seen people do it. It's wrong to have a lot while others are struggling. So if you resonate with this and however emotional you get over this, it affects your life. So right now, there is a lot of emotion around this because it's like the billionaire class or have so much money and they're taking advantage of the people that don't have money. And some people are trying to have 3 jobs just to earn ends meet. But meanwhile, these guys are sitting pretty with all this and it's just so wrong. It's so wrong. And when you become really passionate about it, you're actually affecting how much money you make. Because the more money you make, the closer you get to those people you don't like that you're bitching about. So the more passionate you are about this, the less money you will create for yourself so you don't become one of those people, right? But then when you look at this in the context of what we were talking about with the last one, life is a struggle, if you're creating life is a struggle, because that's your story, you're the one creating the struggle, right? And if you look and you say, okay, there's all these people that are choosing to create struggle because they're in that cliche, they may not consciously be choosing it, but they're choosing to create struggle. So now if they're in choice of that struggle and I'm not allowed to succeed and have a lot while they're struggling, and I can't make them choose to not struggle, then I can never have a lot. And that's the trap you fall into, right? And this is the thing, there are people that have a lot that are helping those that struggle. They're actually in a better position to help those that struggle, right? So if the choice is there, I'd rather have a lot and be able to help people that are struggling than to go, oh my God, it's wrong to have a lot because there are other people suffering right now, right? It takes money to make money. You can use money to make money, absolutely. But if you believe it takes money to make money and you don't have money, you can't make money. And you've just trapped yourself again. I can't make others jealous. No one, that's not like a cliche, but a lot of people think this. And so if you're worried that if I make a lot of money, if I become really successful, the people closest to me will get jealous or I'll develop haters and I don't want haters out there, then you won't ever get to that level of wealth or success because you're too worried about being attacked, about being hated, about people feeling jealous, about making people feel sad. Right? And again, a lot of this doesn't go on consciously. Consciously, you're like, I'm trying to become successful. I'm working my ass off and I think I'm doing all the right things, but why isn't that success coming? Well, because if it comes and some people start getting jealous, you're going to feel like shit and you're avoiding that feeling. Okay. And I'm not as far in life as I should be. I hear this all the time. If I'm in a room of 100 people and I say, who feels they're not as far in life as I should be? Usually about 99 hands go up. So either everyone's not as far in life as they should be, or everyone actually just feels that way and they're exactly where they need to be. And the other part about this, again, you create what you believe. So if you believe you're not as far in life as you should be, and you actually find a way to catch up and be as far in life as you should be, you will sabotage it because it doesn't match this story. And consciously, you're like, oh my God, I was there. I was almost there. And then I fell back again. Why is this happening to me? But unconsciously, you're like, oh, there we go. Back in the story. I love being in the story. And this is the big thing, that the stories keep us protected so that we don't feel like, worry about people feeling jealous and feel bad. We feel safe, but it also makes you feel right. And I've seen people choose feeling right over being successful, being happy, being wealthy, being healthy, having wonderful relationships. Being right is addictive. And it's not just addictive like mentally, it's like whenever you're right, you get hit with dopamine. So you actually build a dopamine addiction to being right. Now you can be right about positive things in your life, and you often are. And so there's positive things that happen over and over again for you. But there's also a bunch of negative things that happen, and you're addicted to those things happening. And when you really learn how to shift that and get out of the addiction to the negative and get into more addiction to the positive, everything's going to start changing in your life. So here's the good news. Your current life is just a first draft, and you get unlimited drafts. So what you want to do is find out what beliefs are holding you back, get rid of those beliefs, see how your life changes. See what now what do I have to change? Get rid of some more beliefs, see what changes, and just keep repeating the process. And as you do that, you're going to find you're going up in genres. So what are genres? This is a system I created. It's in my book, How to Rewrite Reality. And there's a frequency level from 0 to 100. And the genres represent different areas of frequency, going from the lowest to the highest. And within each genre are a bunch of emotions. And people tend to have a default genre and often a default emotion within that genre. Now, people jump through genres all day long. So sometimes you're happy and you're in comedy, and sometimes you are in the horror genre and you're scared about things happening. And then you can start taking massive action. You get to the action adventure genre, but then something goes wrong and you feel like absolute crap and you go down to the tragedy genre. But overall, you tend to live in one of the genres. So let's have a look at them. So the lowest genre is the tragedy genre, which is a frequency of 0 to 2. And these are the emotions associated with this genre in order from lowest to highest. And I've highlighted shame and guilt because I've found the most limitations get created in a person's life out of the avoidance of feeling shame and guilt. So it's like you want to be a speaker, but you're worried that if you get up and talk, people might think you're full of crap, and you don't want to feel that shame of the audience saying, who's this person and why are they talking and why are we even listening to them? And so while you're trying to become the speaker, you find out you're not getting the speaking gigs, or you got the wrong time and you missed the speaking gig, or you get sick just before you're supposed to go on. And that's all trying to avoid that feeling of shame. And when you really start to look at what issues are coming up in your life, where you're not succeeding, where you're not creating the things you want, you can, most of the time, you can trace it back to what kind of feelings of shame and guilt am I trying to avoid? Now, if you get out of tragedy, you can get into the horror genre, which is 2 to 4 out of 100. And these are the emotions associated with the horror genre. At the lowest level, there's terror. But at the highest, it's anxiety, disappointment, overwhelm, right? And so let's say you are living paycheck to paycheck. There are some people that are living paycheck to paycheck and they just go about it and they're like, okay, money's out and I know it's going to come in again. But there are others that are worried, am I going to pay my bills every month? And if that's that default emotion, if you're worried about your bills every single month, you're actually in the horror genre, which is only 2 to 4 out of 100. And that's where you're spending most of your time. How often are you worrying about things? How often are you in doubt of your actions? How often do you feel like you're overwhelmed by what's going on in the world? Now, again, you can have these feelings for a short period of time and actually be in a higher genre. But if you're feeling these all the time, you're in the horror genre. Above that is the drama, and this is 4 to 8 out of 100. These are the emotions associated with the drama genre. And this is the genre that has the most judgment. This genre is all about you against. So you against the government, you against the church, you against the certain group of people, you against your boss, you against your family, right? So there's all this judgment going on, and there's all this conflict, internal conflict happening in the drama genre. Now, the interesting thing about the drama genre is this drama does not impede the accumulation of wealth. So you can still be a millionaire and be in the drama genre, but there's a whole bunch of drama that comes along with it. If you look at a lot of the celebrities, you can see they're making lots of money doing stuff, but you hear about the drama that's going on. You hear about the Kardashians, Kanye West, like there's drama there, right? So that stuff can still show up. It doesn't impede how successful you can be. It's just that now there's a lot more of it when you have that success level going on. Okay. Above that is documentary. And these are the emotions of documentary. And it's called documentary. I called it this because for me, it's like watching one of those nature movies, like this is the day in the life of a cougar, and they watch it go out, hunt, and then come back and then sleep. And it just does the same thing over and over each day. And I have friends like this where, I haven't talked to them in a while, and I get back to them and I say, hey, what have you been doing for the last couple of years? And they're like, yeah, same old, same old. And I'm like, really? Same old, same old? And at the lowest level, there's monotony and boredom. But at the highest level, the same old is great. It's cheerful because I'm not worried about bills. I've got a job that's stable. I enjoy raising my kids, and we get to go on vacation twice a year. And we just repeat that every year, and it's good. And it's safe, and it works for us. So why change it? Why rock the boat? These are the people in documentary. There's nothing wrong with being in documentary, but it's just like, and there are a lot of people in it that have the house, that they're paying off the mortgage, 2.5 kids, they go to work every day, they come home, but they're happy. They're generally happy. They're in documentary. Above that, in action. Now we're at 16 to 32. And these are the emotions associated with action. And with action, entrepreneurs are typically in action, well, happy entrepreneurs. So you get your fix in action by achieving goals, right? So, it could be entrepreneurial things. I built my business to this level, but it could be a physical workout. I'm now able to lift this much. Whenever you hit those goals, you get your fix of dopamine and go, look at this, I accomplished this and I accomplished this. You've got milestones in your life. You've got goals you've set, and you keep upping those goals and increasing your life and your enthusiasm. And this is a cool place to be. But above that is comedy. And here's the emotions associated with comedy. And the difference between action and comedy, people in comedy are still taking action, but they're in joy through the whole process of the action, not just when they get their accomplishments met. So for them, the whole journey is enjoyable, not the end game. And that's 32 to 64. So the final one is prophecy, 64 to 100. And these are the emotions associated with prophecy. And the thing about prophecy is you get to the state where you say, I want this to happen. And then it happens. And people slip into prophecy every day for something. But a lot of people slip into, my boyfriend or girlfriend, my partner cheats on me. So they go into there, they create that prophecy, and then they slip back into drama, and then they have a fight with the boyfriend or the girlfriend over cheating on them. And then they live out drama for the rest of the day. But they spent that little bit of time in prophecy making sure that showed up. So, but when you're in prophecy and you're in there consistently, you're happy, you're in this place of faith and trust and peace, and things just start to happen. And it doesn't have to be you that makes it happen. You just said this would be cool, and then it shows up. Someone else makes it happen. Steve Jobs used to be known, they used to say that he had a reality distortion field around him. And that's because he said, this would be cool, let's create this. And then it would get created. He wouldn't, originally he was actually creating it, but once he was the CEO of a big company, then he got the staff to do it. But he'd come up with the ideas and say, oh, this would be cool. And then it would happen. So you can touch in prophecy every single day, and you do. When you start to consciously use this prophecy genre to create whatever the hell you want in your life, it becomes so amazing. I was talking about this in class one day, and they said, but you can't just create and just not have to take action. You still have to take action. I said, no, when you're really in this, things just line up. And one of the things, I love Booster Juice, which is a smoothie in Canada. And one of the students said, well, can you manifest a Booster Juice? And I said, well, first of all, I'm not here to do parlor tricks and stuff, but it's, if I intend to get a Booster Juice, it will show up. And it could be that it shows up because I go and I drive and I get a Booster Juice, but other things can happen to make a Booster Juice show up. And what was hilarious is just after we finished that discussion, my roommate arrives home and he said, I was out and I decided to pick up a Booster Juice while I was out. So here you go. And then I just held it up to them. And I'm like, so see, I didn't have to go anywhere. And here it is. because we were in that discussion and I was in the feeling of prophecy during that discussion. So it just showed up. And that can happen over and over again. Now, you don't know how long it takes for things to manifest. So you could decide, I want this to show up, and it could show up in the next 5 minutes, or it could show up 5 years later, because everything takes different amounts of times to manifest. But when you're in prophecy, they always manifest. So your goal is to figure out where you are in the genre scale and get higher and higher to get to prophecy if you can. Now, this map shows the frequency level versus the height, but also horizontally, that's the population of the earth and how much each genre, like how many people are in each genre proportionally. So most of the world is in the lower three genres, the tragedy, horror, and drama. And less people are in the higher genres, and very, very few people are consistently in the prophecy genre. But this is how the population's set itself up right now. And so don't be surprised if you're encountering a lot of people that are worried, that are scared, that are in a whole bunch of drama, because they're taking up a big chunk of the population on the earth right now. So the question is, how do you get to those higher genres? And that comes from removing the bad beliefs and stories. And the thing to remember is your current reality is the manifestation of your past beliefs and stories. So when you create new beliefs, give the results time to catch up to you. So we're going to be shifting some beliefs for a couple of people in just a couple of minutes. And when that happens, you can watch your reality shift. But you may also say, okay, well, we had a belief that I'm not making enough money, and Shiraz said he cleared it, but then I'm still having some money issues. It's because the beliefs you created, last week, 3 weeks ago, 6 months ago, have created results that are still coming down the pipeline. And they may still be showing up before the new results show up. And if you say, oh, look, these bad results are still showing up, what you're saying is, let's cancel what we just shifted, because I'm looking at this reality that's showing up now, not the one that's going to come down the pipeline. And I'm going to stick to that because the evidence is in front of me. New evidence can start to show up, but you have to wait for that evidence to show up and then anchor yourself to that new evidence and say, oh, wow, now money's showing up, right? If that's the problem for you. So how does this all work? Oh, look, more people have arrived. Okay. So to create these shifts, what I do is I have conversations with you. And when I talk to you, I can tell when your conscious beliefs match your unconscious beliefs. So I know whenever you're lying. And I don't care if you're lying to me, I care if you're lying to you. So I could be talking to Debbie and I say, Debbie, what's the big issue in your life right now? And Debbie could say, oh, it's money. I'm not making enough money. And I'll say, Debbie, do you want to make more money? And Debbie will say, yes, of course I want to make more money. And I'm like, no, Debbie, that's not coming up true. And Debbie will say, no, it is true. I'd really like to make more money. I'm like, I'm sorry, Debbie, it's just not coming up true. So let's talk about why you don't want to make money. And we'll start having a conversation. And it could turn out that Debbie feels that if she makes a lot of money, then the rest of her family will say, Debbie, you need to share that money with us. You need to invest in Uncle Charles' projects. You need to help Dave out. You need to do this with your money and take care of the family because you have so much money. And Debbie's like, I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to be forced to spend my money on my family. And when you're in that state that, oh my God, I don't want to have to say to spend my money on these people, then your subconscious goes, well, you know what, Debbie, if we don't have a lot of money, they can't ask us to spend the money on the family. So let's keep the money at just a high enough level that the family can't come and ask us for money. And so then the lack of money is actually a solution for Debbie. It's not a problem, but she sees it as a problem because she's like, I want some more money. I want to be able to do more things. I want to afford better things. But subconscious is like, but what about the family? We don't have to deal with that family and them coming up and Debbie, give us the money. Debbie, give us the money, right? So that's how it happens. So then once we find out that's there, I'm going to say, Debbie, listen, you can have the money. You just have to be willing to say no to your family and not feel guilty about it, because that might be what it is. I'll feel guilty if I say no to my family. Or it could be in a drama thing. I don't want to go through the drama of like, give us the money. No, I'm not going to give you the money. I don't want to deal with you people. And you get angry at them. You don't want to do that. So let's just not have the money. Whatever it is, not having the money is keeping her safe. So I'm going to say, okay, so Debbie, if you're willing to say no and just that's it, no, you can't have it, and you're okay with not going into those emotions, you can have as much money as you want. So are you willing to destroy the belief that you have to minimize your money so you don't have to say no to your family? And if Debbie says yes, and she means it, she has to mean it, then that belief gets snuffed out right then and there. And when that happens, there's a shift in energy because everything is energy, including your beliefs and stories. And when energy shifts, I tend to yawn and cough. So that's going to happen in the next 20 minutes or so. And for you, we'll see what happens. For a lot of people, when energy shifts, they feel some tingling in their chest area and possibly a release, but you may yawn, you may cough, you may burp, you may get hot, you may get cold, you may feel tingling in different parts of your body, you may feel a muscle twitch, you may get a little lightheaded. If it's a deep emotional belief we're pulling up, you may feel nausea, and you may not feel anything, but chances are if you don't feel anything, but I'm coughing a lot, things are shifting. So that's what I'm going to do with a couple of people. Now, the cool thing is, if I'm doing this for Debbie and Catherine's like, oh my God, I have the exact same belief as Debbie, then when I say, Debbie, are you willing to destroy that belief? Catherine can say yes, and it's going to move for Catherine. And it doesn't have to be exact. So if we're working on Debbie and it's like, oh, I have this belief that I can't make more money than my father, but Charles is like, I have the same belief, but I can't make more money than my mother. Charles can make that mental transposition of mother with father and say yes, and it's going to move for Charles. So that's the wonderful thing about these group things is I can work on one person and everyone in the group can get the benefit of it. Now, if you hear me say ow, it's because I've started talking to Debbie about something and she's decided, oh, let's not move that belief. That belief I need. That's an important belief. It has to stay. So she's sort of rejecting it. She's in resistance. And it's almost like she's throwing energetic daggers at me. And it doesn't really hurt, but it gives me the feeling of the intensity of which she's trying to hold on to this belief. And when people go into reactions and resist and hold on to those beliefs, those are typically beliefs that really keep you stuck. So we want to try and move that. Okay. And so that's what's going to happen now. And I'm actually going to stop the stream when I start working on people, but I am going to keep the recording going. So this is what I do with the recordings is we just save the audio of the recording and it's just after I say your name. So your name is typically not in the recording, but the recordings go up on YouTube for the individual sessions. So if you go to the Energetic Magic channel on YouTube, there are hundreds of recordings of me working on people, and just listening to those recordings and saying yes when I ask you to say yes can cause shifts. And what you're actually doing when these shifts are happening is it's not only energetic, you are destroying the neurons that hold the story in your brain. So you're removing that brain matter that's keeping you limited. And then you can create new stories and build different kind of brain matter to get you into new positive stuff. And that's where the habits and stuff come from. Is you just got neurons telling you this is how you need to function because you're just like a massive computer. So if you would like to get work done, realize that you will end up on YouTube. That's the caveat for getting work done for free. And what I'd like you to do is go down to reactions. And when you click on it, there is a raise hand option. It's the lowest thing. It actually says raise hand. If you're on the latest version of Zoom and on a laptop. If you're not on the latest version of Zoom or on a mobile device, go to more or ... and click on that. And there should be a raise hand option there. And I'm going to work on two people. Well, it's getting late. Maybe I only work on one person. And we're going to see what we can change. So, and we have a volunteer. Okay. So let me just spotlight me, spotlight you. And you're going to have to tell me how to pronounce your name because there's no way I'm going to know how to pronounce that. How are you doing?
I'm okay.
Okay. So what's the issue you want to work on?
I just feel like, my life keeps getting stuck in a rut.
Okay.
So I, either get temporary jobs or I get jobs that not pay enough and things like that. And like I have a lot of job unemployment kind of thing going on in my life, and
Okay, your connection
I
is
need to
breaking
be
up a bit. It's
financially
hard.
much better off, like uh, to get my own place and everything, and live comfortably. So
Okay, your connection is really bad, and I'm having problems understanding what you're saying here. Is there any way you can get a better Wi-Fi
okay,
signal? Or
do you want me to repeat?
well, now you're
Do
completely
you need
frozen.
to repeat? Okay. I'll just check. My Wi-Fi will not change. Maybe I can log in from my phone. I'll just try logging in from my phone. I'm on a laptop right now.
Okay, with your video
Just a
off,
moment.
it actually sounds better.
I hope you guys enjoy it.
Although I can hear myself.
I'm just
speaking.
logging in from my phone to see whether that is a better connection.
Okay. Okay, actually, I gotta stop this